Welcome to Navigating Special Education. My name is Pennie Ohia. I am your special education advocate and your podcast host. If this is your first time listening, I'm glad you're here. If you've been listening all along, thank you for coming back. In our last episode, we talked about how to request a meeting, knowing when it's time, and what to do next. We discussed how to recognize concerns, how to bring the school to the table, and how to start the conversation. Today, we're talking about what to do next after speaking with the school and you decide it's time to request an evaluation in writing. Before I go any further, I want to be clear about my role. I am a special education advocate. I am not an attorney and I do not provide legal advice. What I do is help families understand how the special education system works, what schools are responsible for, and how you can navigate the system clearly and confidently. Everything I share here is meant to support understanding and not replace legal guidance. With that being said, let's walk through what happens after you request an evaluation. Once you've had the meeting and you still have concerns about your child's progress and behavior, then the next step is submitting a written request for an evaluation, for an initial evaluation. That request does not have to be long or emotional. It can be simple and direct. You can say something like, I am formally requesting an evaluation for my child due to ongoing, academic and behavior concerns. That's it. That written request is what's going to trigger the formal process. It's not the hallway conversation that you had with your teacher, and it's not the quick phone call that you had with the principal. It's the written request. Now, after the district receives your request, they must respond within 10 school days. The response must be in writing. The document you should expect to receive is called the Prior Written Notice, or PWN. That is the formal name for the document. Prior Written Notice must clearly state whether the district is proposing to conduct an evaluation or refusing to conduct an evaluation. If they refuse, they must explain why. It cannot be vague and it cannot be verbal. It must be in writing. Now, you might not hear from your child's classroom teacher at this stage because oftentimes the response is going to be coming from either the principal, maybe you have a special education coordinator at the school, it could be the district's special education office, or it could be a school psychologist. But once evaluation is requested, this becomes the special education administrative process rather than the classroom conversation that you've been having. When you receive the prior written notice, you must also receive what's called the Procedural Safeguard Notice. This is a state requirement. The Procedural Safeguard explains your right as a parent and your child's right to receive public education. They outline your rights to consent or refuse, your right to disagree, your right to a mediation, your right to file a state complaint, and your right to due process. So if you receive a prior written notice and the procedure safeguards are not included, you should request them. Again, this is not optional. If the district proposes to evaluate, then you will also receive what's called a consent to evaluate form. Testing cannot begin without your written consent. That signature matters. And here is something many parents understand. The 30-day school evaluation timeline does not begin when you send your request. It begins when you sign consent. Your signature starts the clock. So once consent is signed, then the district has 30 school days to complete the evaluation. During that time, What is called the Multi-Disciplinary Evaluation Team, often referred to as the MET, well, they're going to conduct the evaluation. So let me explain what that means. Multidisciplinary means more than one area of expertise. So the MET is not one person making a decision alone. It's a group of professionals with different specialties who evaluate your child based on the areas of concern. Now, depending on what concerns you've raised, then that team may include, for an example, a psychologist, a speech language pathologist, a social worker, a special education teacher, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, or there could be other specialists that may be involved in your child's evaluation process. So the members of the team depends on what areas are being evaluated. Now, if there are academic and behavior concerns, then you're likely to see a school psychologist involved. If there are speech concerns, then a speech pathologist should be part of the evaluation. If there are sensory or fine motor skills, then an occupational therapist may be included. The purpose of the MET is to gather information from multiple perspectives. They conduct the assessments, they observe your child, they review your records, and they collect the data to determine whether a disability exists and whether it impacts their educational performance. After the MET completes its evaluation and makes a recommendation, the eligibility decision is made by the IEP team. That team includes you. You are not sitting on the sideline. You are part of the decision-making process. If the team determines that your child qualifies, then the district must provide written notice of eligibility determination and offer of free appropriate public education. Now we're going to talk about FAPE, or free appropriate public education, in another podcast. This document explains whether your child qualifies and what services are being offered. Even at this stage, services do not begin automatically. You must provide written consent for special education services. So once you sign consent for services, the district must implement the IEP within 15 days. That means services begin, not eventually, not when convenient, within 15 school days. There's one important detail I want to add. An extension of the evaluation timeline is only allowed if agreed to in writing by both you and the district. The district cannot extend timelines simply because they have staffing shortages or their schedules are busy. You must agree in writing. Now let's talk about what you should do when you receive these documents. Pause. Read everything carefully. Look at the date on the prior written notice. Confirm whether it says that they have a proposal or a refusal. Review the areas the district intends to evaluate. Make sure your concerns are reflected. If you are concerned about speech, behavior, attention, emotional regulation, or sensory issues, those areas should be included. Now, don't feel pressured to sign immediately. Ask questions if something is unclear. And if you receive these documents and you're not sure about what they mean, if you feel like something is missing, or if you simply want someone else to review them before you sign consent, you can always contact me at Pennie Ohia at specialeducationsadvocate.com. That's what I do. I help parents understand what they're signing, what the timeline means, and what their rights are before the process moves forward. Because once you sign the consent, the clock is running, and you should understand every step before you start that clock. Requesting an evaluation is not emotional. It's structured. There are required documents. There are timelines attached at each stage. Once you understand that structure, you move through the process differently. You stop feeling uncertain and you start feeling informed. In the next episode, we'll talk about what actually happens during the evaluation itself, what testings look like, and how to prepare calmly and confidently. If this episode was helpful, you're welcome to follow or subscribe to Navigating Special Education on the platform you're listening on now. For additional resources and information about my advocacy services, you can visit my website at www.michiganautismacademy.com/child advocate services. And if you need support reviewing documents and understanding your next step, you can contact me at Pennie Ohia at specialeducationadvocates.com. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I'll talk to you next time.